Mahalo for tuning in to Island Focus. We're here at the Downtown Arts Center on Nu'uanu Avenue to converse with local leaders about the issues impacting Honolulu. Thank you for joining us on Island Focus. So tell us a little bit about this space.
So about 5 years ago, I walked through the double glass doors and I knew we were home. I knew that we would have an art center. So what we did with my friends, we transformed this space into what we have now. So what you're looking at is our heritage. This used to be where they took registration money for cars.
So it was an office building.
And it was vacant. And we decided that we would dress it up and transform it into an art center that truly reflected who we are as a people.
So as we look at your wall here that reflects your supporters, there's quite a variety of people.
Right. And all the people we asked willingly gave. They believed in the dream.
So it was a dream of bringing people together for the name of art, but also to transform their lives.
That's the byproduct, I think, that what happens is when people are working together and they're working with the arts and they're bearing their soul, because that's what artists do, they share what's in their heart and their soul. It does transform people's lives.
The artists as well as people who appreciate art. It's so nice to make your acquaintance, Matt. Thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
You're a busy man at the City and County and Chief Resiliency Officer.
So yeah, that's probably an interesting title and one that might sound new to folks, but really the voters created the city's Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency in 2016, and I serve as the director of that office, but also the Chief Resilience Officer for the city to coordinate all these activities with all of our other amazing city leaders.
You know, we're in the center of downtown at the gallery here. How does this place trigger for you the responsibility that you have in your office?
Especially thinking about impacts and opportunities to people in place. I mean, all of the work in terms of addressing climate change, whether it's through emissions and pollution reduction or preparing communities for the changes that we anticipate with temperatures, rainfall, etc. Right outside the window, you can see a lot of those improvements in action, whether it's the bulb outs to make it safer and shorter distances for people to access and get to the local businesses, or a lot of the great street tree plantings that our Department of Parks and Recreation has been doing to make sure that we continue to have these kinds of critical infrastructure to manage rain and temperature.
You know, when I hear climate change, it's so huge. And I know that there are actions that we can personally take to mitigate. Can you tell us a little more what to expect and what we should do?
Climate change can feel so overwhelming and so daunting. And what it really means is that we know the kinds of hazards that we're already concerned about, whether it's a hurricane, high waves, coastal erosion, or the like. Climate change is magnifying and amplifying. It's a multiplier effect of our known challenges. So when we think about it that way, it allows us to take these bite-sized approaches to really get at the issues. So when we think about it that way, I think it sort of opens up and invites people to look outside their door, think about how they can get involved in their community to help support environmental change that allows us to thrive into the future.
Well, and one of the issues around them also is our economic concerns, beach erosion as an example. How else are you involved?
So beach erosion is a really specific example of the impacts that can happen to not just private property, but also our public trust resources, which are the beach themselves. Similarly, we've had a lot of community impacts to coastal beach parks. We've actually had to remove comfort stations in a West Side beach park, unfortunately. But on the flip side of climate change adaptation, it's taking action to eliminate the contributions, and that's greenhouse gas pollution And we know that not only are there ways to invest in community, invest in buildings, invest in city operations that are just good business, it's also good for climate change action.
And how do people find out about these actions that your office is taking, but certainly that other people are doing?
Yeah, we would encourage everyone to visit our website, resilientoahu.org, and follow along with us on social media. We have some new exciting things that have come out in the past couple of months, including the city's annual sustainability report and the city's first ever climate action plan. And in that, you can find all these things, whether you're a household or a business, and ways that you can really start to chip away at your bottom line for resilience economically into the future, but it's also helping us on the community-wide pollution side too.
We're inundated, right, with the negativity and the uncertainty of what's next. What is next?
What is next? It's not just about preparing for the worst, and that's what a lot of climate change communication can feel like. We certainly cannot underscore the urgency or really sugarcoat the challenges that we face. But there's so much that wasn't working for people already that when we take those things to really address the people and keep people front and center, focused in our equity, and think about the solutions that bring benefit to them, to households, to communities, to neighborhoods, those things accrue to address these issues that we've been talking about.
You know, I'm an advocate of youth voices, and when our young people speak, we do listen, some of us. What recommendation might you give to the younger generation to be vocal and become the leaders in this?
We're very excited to share that through a resolution, or actually an amendment last year, Honolulu will now have its first youth commission. So this is really a recognition of all these things that we're talking about towards future decades. Those people need to be brought into the conversation today. So if you haven't had a chance to apply, I would certainly encourage anyone that's interested to stay tuned for the development of that commission, but also work with other groups. There's a Hawaii Youth Climate Coalition, which is this group of young teenagers, young adults empowering each other to learn about processes, how they can get involved. And frankly, they've helped drive a lot of the movement that we've seen locally in terms of single-use plastic pollution prevention, as well as the climate action plan itself.
How do you keep your energy up? Because it's really exciting to talk with you.
It can feel challenging. Change is coming to our shoreline. And again, we need to acknowledge that and recognize it, because taking no action really isn't an option. But that can feel very heavy and weighty and a burden. But when we're out there engaging with community, getting their kinds of inputs to these plans and processes, it's really what lifts us all up and gives us the motivation to keep doing the hard work.
And so the parting message for the audience.
Again, resilientoahu.org to stay informed, but learn about these opportunities to share your voice, whether it's the commission, plans, policies, or seeking out these things that you can get rebates to support and invest in your own household or business.
And just do it.
Just do it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You've just had the opportunity to meet Matthew Gonser, who is the Chief Resiliency Officer for the City and County of Honolulu. This hallway is particularly significant for you.
Yeah, it is. So when my husband died 20 years ago, I had to have an income. What he left me was artwork. So I came into Chinatown where people start their businesses. This is an equal opportunity neighborhood. So I came into this neighborhood and I sold Lewis's artwork.
Tell me about Lewis.
Oh, he was a wonderful man, real gentle and caring. He said, I can teach anybody to paint, and everybody's an artist.
Well, and what we see on the walls, it's you can tell his style,
Right.
But everything is different.
So one of the things about Lewis was he got very bored of doing the same thing. Most artists, when they find a formula, they keep painting it, and they'll paint it for 20 years. But he found it very difficult to do that. He thought up a theme, and he said, I can do 10 of those. And he'd do 10 and move on to another thing.
So really what this gallery shows is the inexhaustible creativity of the human mind and spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
What a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Kevin. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day and sharing with us the neighborhood board here in Chinatown.
Thank you, Lyla. It's been my pleasure over the past year to have served as the chairman of Downtown Chinatown Neighborhood Board number 13. We're very proud of the work that we do there and the information that we bring to our community. And during my tenure as chair, it was my goal to convey information from different groups that do work in and around our community, to let our constituents and our elected officials who represent our district know what's going on.
But it must be really enlivening, I guess, for you to be in a leadership role with the community and helping the community understand more.
During the past year, I did develop some methods for our community to learn more about what's going on, such as implementing an electronic online presence for our board so that our agenda items, our presentations, different resolutions that we discuss were all made available to our constituents to review during, before, and after our meetings so they can have a better idea of what's going on.
And what are you finding from the constituents' responses?
I think that there are many groups that are steadfastly passionate about Chinatown and the historic nature of Chinatown. And that's really great to see that people are able to want to preserve that historic aspect that we have here and maybe keep downtown Chinatown area from becoming what other parts of the island have become, trying to maintain our distinctness.
So you've lived downtown for quite a while, being part of the board as well. What have you noticed in terms of growth, change?
There's no doubt that things are different now than what they were, say, 10, even 15 years ago. And that change has not always been for the better. Our residents, our business owners, all come to our meetings and let us know about the concerns that they have. Chinatown and downtown face a number of chronic, literally debilitating issues, from homelessness, illicit drug use, mental health issues, disrespect of property rights. And these are all very concerning because without addressing those, it's difficult to see a fruitful path forward for our part of the island to become revitalized.
And those are the people issues. We also have infrastructure concerns, and certainly with climate change and rising water. Do you address those as well?
It's come up several times. In fact, while we were considering a potential site for relocation of Central Fire Station, one site that was proposed was relatively close to Nimitz Highway in the area, relatively near the water, and relatively near where a potential future rail station would be built. And yet that site was not permitted or duly considered, we felt, by the Honolulu Fire Department to be a potential site for a relocated station.
So when we look to the future, what do you envision?
I'd love to see a place where Chinatown has regained the vibrancy that it used to have. I can recall very vividly some of the street festivals that we would have where, for example, Oʻahu Avenue was blocked off and there was a literal red carpet running down the middle of the road for a fashion show or something like that, really drawing all sorts of people into that part of town. Really joyous, festive time. Even if we discount the impact of the recent pandemic, we just haven't seen that sort of passion or excitement in the area. But I think there are some ways that we could begin to reinvigorate the area. Some of these ideas have been brought up at our neighborhood board meetings in the past, over the past several years, in fact. And I think that this is a prime time to begin to brainstorm, to find the right groups that will be able to lead the charge. And it will take a combination of both the private and public sector.
You know, many visitors don't know about this area. There's Chinatowns in every city. How will we distinguish ourselves?
Our Chinatown is often billed as either the oldest or the second oldest Chinatown in all of America, simply because of the way our city was built and the influx of different groups here over the past century and more. That's something that should be celebrated. We have plenty of history here, historic buildings. There are many details on our buildings in the Chinatown area, which, if you look up just beyond street level, but up to the second or third floor, you can see these ornate different details that are fascinating and make for great objects for art, photography, painting, many of which we see here at the Downtown Arts Center. What I'd like to do is see Chinatown become a destination on our island of Oʻahu, just as Waikiki and other resorts area. In the near future, if and when rail comes and we have rail stations that are in the proximity of Chinatown, it will be great for folks to take a day tour from the resorts here to our town, in Chinatown, stop at a place such as the Downtown Arts Center, have a chance to devise a walking path through our area, which will take them past any number of merchants, food stalls, and circle back before they head back to wherever they may be staying.
Well, and perhaps you can already pilot this with the schools and having some of our young people, many of our young people, come down and understand that this is part of who they are as well.
That'd be a great educational opportunity for those that may be less well versed in the history here. The more that we can share information about this part of town, look to preserve its culture, along the way improve the business aspects of this part of town. Let's see if we can find a way to get rid of the boarded up storefronts, the graffiti laden areas, spruce it up, and understand that that's very important for tourists when they come. I can recall vividly back in 2019 when, before the pandemic, I was spending some time on Honshu Island in Japan, hiking in the Kii Peninsula, came out of the woods in Wakayama province at a large ornate gate, 33 meters tall, and nearby was a fantastic cultural heritage center. The staff there were immaculately polite, they were patient, they were polyglottal, and they could help arrivals design their next path and help them understand the area. And there was an art exhibit similar to this right in the same building as well. So I think the examples are there, and that's what I'm thinking about when I'm trying to envision how we could improve the area.
Well, and especially because we have our culture here, not only the Hawaiian culture, but also the mixture of ethnicities that make up Chinatown.
Absolutely. There's no shortage of different historical societies that would be willing to share their culture, have their representatives here, make sure that no one is left out.
Well, thank you very much for your time and for helping us give that vision.
Thank you, Lyla.
Thank you. You've just had the pleasure of getting to know Kevin Lai, the chairperson for the Downtown Chinatown Neighborhood Board number 13. So this is the room that you call the courtyard room, another meeting space for people to gather as we look at the heart of Honolulu. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, as I gaze out here and we look at the history as well as the modern buildings, it's what triggered you.
Yeah, so I grew up in this neighborhood and I thought, you know, we're really special. We have everything here. And I'm really grateful for that because we have our history is here. So we have what every great city has, compact into 16 square blocks.
And being in the heart of Honolulu must be really reassuring for you to know that a gallery could be so successful in a downtown business place.
Yeah, and that people just love coming here. What we found that is the artists are talking to artists, explaining what their medium is, and they're talking to everybody about what they do and how they express themselves.
It's kind of an oasis.
Yeah, good word.
It's been a long time, Jeff, and it's been wonderful to see you. Thank you for being with us today. Tell us a little bit more about where Blue Planet is, where you've come from, and some of the exciting things that are going on.
Thanks, and I have to say we miss you at the legislature. But Blue Planet's been around for about 13 years, founded with this audacious idea of essentially ending oil in Hawaii. And through our evolution, you know, we came to recognize that Hawaii can really be this model for the globe when it comes to climate and clean energy solutions. So that drove us to push for the 100% renewable energy law in 2015. We were the first state in the nation with such a mandate. Since then, nearly a dozen states and territories have followed. And it really proved this idea that Hawaii can be this fulcrum where we move the world. We have every resource here. We have all of the opportunities. These are solutions that the Earth is begging for right now. So we're well positioned to be that leader.
You know, when we talk about climate change or we hear climate change, it's a huge topic. And us average persons, you know, we can turn off the lights and stop the water when we're brushing our teeth. But there's more that we could do as well.
Right. And this is the challenge. You know, there's a spectrum of folks who understand the depth of the issue, and sometimes they go into despair, thinking that it's all on me, you know. And then on the other side, there's folks that feel it's someone else's problem. But somewhere in the middle, there's that sweet spot. And I think the important message there is this is a team sport. Individual actions matter, but we really have a structural challenge to deal with. And so I tell folks, whatever your passion is, whatever your talent is, use that as an avenue for helping solve our climate crisis.
So give me some examples on how people are showing up and what people are doing, and how you're also guiding more creativity.
You know, a lot of this shows up in our student impact programs. We do an annual student energy summit. We've launched something called Climate Crew, which is cohorts of really motivated high school students to take acts of climate leadership. So it might be giving a presentation to a neighborhood board, or testifying at the legislature, or doing an art project or a community campaign. So just finding what they're passionate about and using that to channel the energy to help solve our problem.
And how are the schools involved, as well as businesses?
We have a great education program where one of our team members goes to classrooms and does some pretty engaging presentations. It really pairs well with our other two sorts of our main areas of impact, and that's our policy work. It's a critical piece to make sure that we have the right rules in place to move us to 100% clean energy in an equitable way, and in a way that's done by design and not by default. And then our third important piece is what we call storytelling, which is essentially changing the conversation about energy, about how we generate and use energy, almost changing the culture of our energy. And getting people to think a little bit different. You know, we take it for granted. You flip the light switch, you jump in the car, you fly off to Vegas, and you don't understand fully the implications of that. So how can we kind of change how people perceive and use energy?
Well, and what I hear you saying is we don't necessarily have to change everything we do, but how we do it, and also how we convey the information to our younger generation.
Because there's this tension, people think, oh, if we're going to solve climate, then we have to give up everything.
Right.
And we don't, want that kind of sacrificial. There's going to be some shared sacrifice for sure, but we're in a good position that if we get this right, we have technologies that will enable the lifestyle that we enjoy to a certain extent without compromising future generations. I'm thinking about solar, thinking about electric vehicles, things that are providing without, damaging our climate long term.
Now, the policy piece is probably even more daunting
Right.
than changing the story. How are you navigating through that?
As the story changes, we can help lawmakers understand that this shift is occurring. So a good example of that is, Hawaii leads the nation with rooftop solar. We have over 1 in 3 individual homes have a mini power plant on their roof right now. And because of that, for a lot of folks in Hawaii, solar was no longer an abstract concept. It was powering their home and reducing their bills. So because of that, that really helped us advance our 100% renewable energy law. And when that passed in Hawaii, that was a game changer for the utility. And like I mentioned, other states seeing that it was possible. But you're right, policy change is difficult because we're really using our democratic system that's very, public engagement and the tensions and the politics, but asking them to look at this long-term problem and take near-term decisions. So that does occupy quite a bit of our energy.
What were some of the lessons learned during this pandemic?
So many parallels between the COVID challenge that's ongoing, unfortunately, and climate change. The main one is, sometimes big problems come in small packages. Just the tiny little coronavirus and our tiny little carbon dioxide molecule. But so many parallels with, we rely on our neighbors. You're not safe until everyone is safe. We need to bend the curve of emissions. We need to bend the curve of our infections. And the faster you do it, the better off we all are. And science matters. I think that was another underlying current. And we need government intervention. We need the right policies to make sure that we can really all be on the same page in solving the problem. So a lot of parallels. The challenge, though, is we don't have a vaccine yet for climate change. So this is going to be a different kind of challenge. It was a bit of a dry run or a test for us going through COVID globally. Do we have the right systems in place to respond to these global challenges? What's it really going to take? I feel like we were so eager to get back to business as usual that we might have missed some of those lessons. Blue Planet Foundation put together a document that we called Waypoints, which outlines 50 actions that Hawaii can take to sort of respond to this crisis in a way that both supports our economy and jobs, increases equity, and decarbonizes our economy. And a few of those policies actually passed during the last legislative session, but we do have a long way to go to really put the systems in place to make sure that we do things right here in Hawaii.
Parting words for our audience.
We share this one planet. We have one Earth and one chance. And this is the moment that we all need to come together. Climate change and these solutions, it's not a spectator sport. What role are we going to play? What's our story in helping Hawaii move to 100% clean energy, and in doing so, showing the globe what's possible?
And even if we're not that ambitious to have Hawaii be in the forefront for the world, it's for ourselves.
It is.
To make sure that we're taking care of each other.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much. Your energy is contagious.
Thanks, Lyla.
As it has been over the many years, and keep us posted.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Jeff Michelina, who is the Executive Director for Blue Planet. So in addition to the gallery, you've created this gallery shop for artists to display their work, for the public to be able to come in and not only appreciate, but also take artwork home.
Right. We have a wide variety of artwork. Some very fun things, some serious artwork.
So when one buys a piece of artwork, it reflects not only what they like, but also their beliefs and their heart, and maybe some aspirations that they might have, some dreams that are triggered by that art.
Yeah. I found that to be true for myself. I remember the first time I bought art, I spent $1,000. This is 30 years ago, and my hand was shaking so much I couldn't write the check. But it's that, and I still love that piece that I bought.
What he's left you is not only a legacy of artwork, but also the idea that we can grow, we can transform, and that our purpose in life really is to share with other people the beauty of what we know to be true in our lives.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us today on Island Focus. I'm Lyla Berg. On behalf of the Island Focus crew and the entire staff at Ōlelo Community Media, aloha and malama pono. Take care of yourselves and our beloved Hawaii. See you soon.